Hello. I have this good workaround for something I think that's been a hassle for a lot of people, at least a lot of customers that I spoke with. The problem is when you come in and you go and you create a new case. So if I hit a plus and I create a new case, I can go ahead and start, if I have a consumer and I look up a consumer, it's great. I have Brian Brady in here. But let's say I don't have a consumer in here that I'm looking for and I need to create a new one. There's no way to really go and create a new consumer without coming up here and then creating a new consumer record. And then I can fill the consumer out and first name, middle name, last name. And then I can come back and add that consumer to the case. Right? So it's multiple steps. It's even worse when I go for location. If I wanted to, let's say I wanted to put in a location that said 10 Moss Avenue. Right? And I don't have Moss Avenue in my database right now. So what I would have to do is I would have to come up here and I would go to my same menu and I could put location on my menu here. And then if I went in and I put that on, I would have to know the latitude and longitude unless Google was set up in the background. Then I could put the address in and it would look up the lat and the long for me. But in my case, I don't have Google set up. So I actually have to find out what that latitude and longitude is, whether I'm just putting in the name or I'm putting in the whole street address. So an alternative to doing this is I can use Agent Assist. And this is only done in Agent Workspace. There's not a solution or a workaround that we can use that's in another part of the product. Like we can't use it in a regular form. So with Agent Assist, what I can do here is I can go ahead and use Agent Assist on the right, and I would enable that. And in my case record, I'm looking up, in this case, it's report a wild animal, right? So I could do wild animal. Right, is reported. And then what it's going to do, it's going to look up in my catalog and it's going to see, do I find anything for that? So it did find a catalog item for report a wild animal. And what I can do in here is I can go ahead and click on this and I can order or submit that catalog item. And what that'll do is that's going to bring me back into the catalog. Now, because I'm in a catalog form and creating this new request, this new case, what's nice about this is that I can use a couple other features that I don't have available in Agent Workspace. So the first feature I can use is the Esri Map widget. Now with the Esri Map widget, I can click this, I can move it around, I can click it on the address I want to, and what it's doing is it's passing this address information. So in this case, I'm passing the lat, long, and the address. I'm passing that in the background. Now, what I had here is I was looking up 10 Moss Avenue. So if I come back into this case and I look that 10 Moss Avenue up, I can find that, right? Because it is in my Esri data source, 10 Moss Avenue, Santa Monica. All right, so now I have that address picked out. Now, the other thing I can do is I can go ahead and add my email address in. I can put a short description in like I normally would. And I'm going to say this is John. Right? Now what it's going to do when I go ahead and submit this, I am in Agent Workspace, right? So it's going to give me my case number when I submit it. And then when I view details, it's going to take me back to that case, but it's going to take me into the form in Agent Workspace. So it's really nice. I created that case, and what you'll see is it actually entered 10 Moss Avenue in my location database. Now what I had to do on the background, right? When I pass those variables in from the record producer, I look that address up, and if I don't find it, I have a workflow that creates that location for me. It's the same thing with the consumer. If the consumer is not in the database, I have a workflow, and I'll show you the workflow that will create that user for me. So this makes it a lot easier than jumping out and one by one going ahead and creating those individual records like I was showing you. Right? We don't have to come out here and do this anymore. We can just use a record producer that makes that a lot easier for us, and it makes it all in one step. So now I can go ahead and add comments and do everything I want to, just like I would in a normal case. All right. Now let me just give you a quick peek at the workflow. So these are cases that are coming in, and it did create that user for me. So these are cases that are coming in, and what I do is I pick that up with a workflow. So if I go back in and let's take a look at that workflow real quick. What I do, and I'm just going to go through this briefly, and I will make this source code available. But inside of Flow Designer, I have a case that's going to go ahead, or a flow that's going to go ahead and process all of my record producers that come in from the service catalog. Right, so if I go into Flow Designer, and I'll show you what I did for the flow. So the first thing I have to do with the flow is I have to trigger it. This is a record producer that's reporting into my case table. Right, so what I do, the first thing I do is I set a trigger on my record producer table. Actually, I set a case created, so on my case table. And then what I do is, after I do that, I'm going to see if this case was created by a record producer. Because if the case was created from the regular case form, I don't want to trigger this workflow. If it did come from a record producer, which means that it came from the service portal, it's going to go ahead and it's going to get the variables from that record producer. Now in this case, I'm using a variable set that has the lat, the long, and the address and the location in there. Right, so what's really nice is when I went back out to the in the original flow, it passed this in there from the Esri map widget. So that's what created my 10 Moss Ave location. And after it gets those variables off of the catalog item, it's going to check and it's going to see, do I have a consumer? If I don't have a consumer, it's going to go ahead and create the consumer record for me and update the case. And that's what we just saw. It updated the case from the record producer. Now, if I go down further, I have the same thing on the, not the consumer piece, but I have the same thing on the location. So I'm going to look up the location, and if I find a location, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add the location to the table. So if 10 Moss Avenue was there, it's going to just add the reference to the location table. But if 10 Moss Avenue is not there, it's going to go ahead and create that location in the location table for me, and then update the record. And that's what we just saw during the demonstration. So there's a couple things in play here. There's Agent Assist is number one, and then number two is using a workflow to post-process that case when it comes in from the record producer. So I hope this is helpful. It'll certainly save a lot of people I know a lot of time, especially when they have to create that location. Thanks very much for watching.